For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, that we have to have a righteousness that is better, more than the righteousness of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, to enter the kingdom of heaven. Let's take a look at righteousness and the Pharisees. What is righteousness? Righteousness comes from the Hebrew word tsadaq. That means what is naturally right, morally right, legally right, to be in the right. So, in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, we have to be more in the right than the Pharisees. Let's think about heaven for a second. In heaven, there is only perfect righteousness. We have to be perfectly in the right. In heaven, there is no imperfect righteousness. There is no almost perfectly right. We have to have righteousness that is perfect. Now let's take a look at the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. Who were they? The word Pharisee comes from the Hebrew word parash, that means separated. The teachers of the law and Pharisees were indeed separated from the rest. They were very strict about following the Mosaic laws, to the point of being legalistic. Instead of seeking to understand the spirit of the laws, the Pharisees were focused on the letter of the law, the literal meaning of the words. They pressured everyone else to follow all of the laws perfectly, and if they didn't, they were punished. The Pharisees were very proud of themselves, and they made sure everyone around them knew how holy they were. They saw themselves as righteous, clean, and pure, and separated themselves from others who they saw as unclean. But a lot of people respected the Pharisees and the teachers of the law and thought they were righteous. The Pharisees were also very rich. They had a lot of money and stuff like nice homes and nice clothes. The Pharisees were also very powerful. They had social power, political power, economic power, and religious power. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law were obsessed with their religious rituals, tithing, washings, purifications, and other traditions. But the Pharisees were only righteous looking on the outside. On the inside, in their hearts and in their minds, they were not righteous at all. Thinking that you are righteous when you are not is called self-righteousness, and the Pharisees were self-righteous. Jesus calls the Pharisees hypocrites, blind guides, children of hell, a brood of vipers, and whitewashed tombs. Jesus accused them of being not just, not merciful, and not faithful. The Pharisees had only their self-righteousness, which is not acceptable to God. The only righteousness God accepts is perfect righteousness that comes from believing in Jesus. The Pharisees did not understand that only those who trust in Jesus can be perfectly justified, acceptable by God. The self-righteousness of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law was clearly not enough to enter the kingdom of heaven. Nothing unclean can enter heaven. We have to be perfectly clean, perfectly holy to enter heaven. How is it possible to be perfectly clean, perfectly holy, perfectly righteous? One thing should be clear. A righteousness that is based on self is not going to be enough. To enter heaven, we need righteousness that is perfect, perfect holiness, perfectly clean and pure. The answer is Jesus. We can only enter heaven by receiving the perfect righteousness of Jesus. How do we receive Jesus' perfect righteousness? By believing in Jesus, by believing in the gospel of Jesus, where Jesus took the punishment we deserved for our sins and died on the cross. When Jesus died on the cross, his death meant that we didn't have to die for our sins. His death meant that we were forgiven. His death meant that we were cleansed of our sins. Believing in the gospel of Jesus means that we are perfectly righteous because Jesus made us perfectly righteous by forgiving us, by paying for our sins on the cross. Jesus also rose again from the dead, defeating death from sin. When we believe in Jesus, we believe Jesus has forgiven us. We believe that Jesus has blessed us with his perfect righteousness. We believe that death from sin has been defeated and that we will live and be with Jesus in heaven forever. Jesus died on the cross and took the punishment that we deserved. If Jesus did not do that, we would be deserving of death, eternal separation from God. But Jesus did die for us, forgave us, blessed us with his perfect righteousness, so that we would have righteousness that far surpasses that of the Pharisees. In fact, we have perfect righteousness from Jesus, and because of Jesus, we will enter the kingdom of heaven.